Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys been doing well in this course, which is computer fundamentals. My name is Miss Beatrice, and I'm just gonna go through with you what we have looked at before when we were discussing about computer fundamentals. Okay, we have looked at topics such as a computer in general, the term computer. We have looked at different types of computers. We have looked at different types of operating systems, different brands, basic components of a computer, and we have looked at how the computer boots up, and looked at different states of a computer. So let's go and let's see what we have covered. Okay, so what do you understand by the term computer? I'm sure you know it by the at the back of your hand. You know it so well now. So when we are looking at the term computer, it's something that's made up of hardware and then softwares. Okay, a machine that performs tasks and calculations and then output out some certain data. All right, so a component is just not made up by physical components like the hardwares. That's what we call hardwares or in softwares. Okay, so when we are talking about hardware, these are the things that we can feel, like something that you can touch and see, like a keyboard, for example, a mouse. Those are the things that are physical, which are hardwares. And then the most important piece of hardware is actually this tiny rectangle chip inside the computer, and then that's what we call CPU, and then our microprocessor. That one we can touch it before the computer is assembled together. But once it's assembled together, then we can no longer touch it because it is assembled inside the computer. Okay, and then that chip is the one that makes the whole computer process all the information. Okay, so now looking at things like a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, a printer, and other components often called hardware devices. Okay, if you need to understand the devices of a computer. Okay, if you need to understand now the CPU, central processing unit, or a microprocessor, this is like the brain of a computer. Okay, and then it's the one that translates instructions and performs all the calculations. Basically, if you input in the data, like raw data, we call it raw data. Okay, and it has to be processed by the central processing unit, and then we have to get meaningful information out of it, and then now that's when we can output it in a form of a printer, for example, or a projector. Okay, now we need to understand now different types of computers. We have different types of computers. Like, how do computers work? We have analog computers. Okay, these are almost extinct today. These are different from digital computers because an analog computer can perform several mathematical operations simultaneously, and then it uses continuous variables for mathematical operations and utilizes mechanical or electrical energy. Now, those are analog computers. And then we have digital computers. Digital computers, as you understand, these are the ones that we use mostly nowadays. Okay, so we have analog computers and digital computers. If we want to understand either synchronous or asynchronous, those are the terms that we use. Okay, so I want you to look up for these terms: synchronous and asynchronous. Dig deep on these two terms. All right, it's either analog or digital. Right, now looking at types now, the brands of computers. Okay, these are the types of computers. All right, analog and digital. Those are the types. Now looking at the brands, now we have to look at the brands of computers. Things like hybrid computers. What are the hybrid computers? These are computers like comes in a combination of both digital and analog computers. And then this type of computers, the digital performs segments, process control by conversion of analog to digital ones. All right. So hybrid, basically, these are computers that like I used at Google companies. They are really big computers. They can perform a whole lot of information. We have something like mainframe supercomputers. We have personal computers, like these small computers that we use on the desktops. Those are PCs, we call them in short PCs. We have laptops. We have things like tablets. Even some of the computers, like even the phones, they also perform or work as computers nowadays. Those are different types. All right. Okay. Now we understand now the brands of computers. I'm not gonna put all of them up there, but you need to look and understand types of brands of computers. All right. So now, what are the components of a computer? What makes up a computer? As we said, it's made up of a physical computer, physical component. Physical components, as we said, like memory chip. What's a memory chip? Okay, these are the chips that are assembled together whenever we are assembling together the whole hardware of a computer. And we looked at like processing unit. This will make up something like central processing unit. We have something like a ALU, arithmetic logic unit. So this also makes up a computer. Okay, now components, or a computer can also be made up now of external things like hard drives. Okay, things that we use to output our data. Okay, and then now we have to also look at things like memories. What makes up a memory of a computer? We have things like RAM, which is random access memory. And then when we are talking about random access memory, we understand that this is a type of a memory that is temporary memory. Okay, once you shut off the computer, or once the computer goes off, then that memory is lost, right? But we are going to look at memories later. All right, so now we also have a ROM. It's also a type of a memory. This one store up a memory for a long time, temporary. I mean, not temporarily like a RAM, but this one saves up information for a long time, like CD-ROM. Okay, that's where the CD-ROM came from. Okay, now let's say we have assembled a computer together, where we have now our physical components like a keyboard, a monitor, we have a chip, which is central processing unit, and then we have our CD-ROMs inside. Now we need to go to the step of installing what we call operating systems. What are operating systems? Operating system, we can look at it as a computer application that functions like a brain in a computer. Without an operating system in a computer will not function at all. So basically, operating systems are the first computer applications that are installed in a computer, okay, for the computer to function or to perform calculations and then other stuff. So operating systems, we have different types of operating systems, such as Windows. And Windows has different versions of Windows, such as Windows XP, Windows Explorer, and those were the versions that came earlier in the days. And nowadays we are using Windows 10 and stuff like that. Okay, we also have Unix. Unix is also part of operating systems. We also have now Mac, one of operating systems that is used. And then now these are used in computers. Okay, now but when you're thinking of phones, cell phones, what kind of operating systems you use? So that's why we have Android. Android is used mostly in phones like Samsung's. And iOS, okay, iOS is used in things like Apple, okay, like iPhones. iOS is an operating system for iPhones. So you need to look at different types of operating system. Mobiles or phones have their own different types of operating systems. And computers in general, like a laptop or a desktop, those have their own operating system, right? So now you need to distinguish between the two. And then you need also now to look at different types of operating system for mobiles and for computers. So now we need to understand how the computer boots and then the commands, right? I don't have info here, but we have looked in the previous notes that we have discussed how a computer boots. Whenever a computer boots, we need to look at how the computer recovers itself from the harm, for example, or let's say a computer had what you call, it lost some information. A computer crashed. When a computer crashes, we need to know how to boot a computer so that it come back to reset itself, and then it can bring some of the lost information. Okay, now that's a process where we can able to boot a computer. Okay, so I think in this course there's no much of information covered in what we call computer fundamentals, because you just need to understand few basics of computers, things that are involved in. And then this type of exams comes in the form of mostly multiple choice. If I have to advise you, you need to read more on these basic things, and then the exams appears in the form of a multiple choice. All right, let's just review what we have looked at. We have looked at what's a computer. You need to understand the definition of a computer in general, and then different types of computers. We need to understand the different operating systems. When do we install an operating system? Okay, you need to understand now different brands of computers, like hybrid, mainframe, supercomputers, personal computers. Phones are also part of computers nowadays, and basic components. What makes up a computer? Okay, when you are looking at what makes up a computer, you have to look at the components that can able to input in data, for example, a keyboard, a mouse. You have to look at the central processing part, which is a CPU, and then you have to look at the output part of a computer, and then that's the part. You have to understand also the components that output out the data. For example, USBs, we have things like a projector or a scanner or a printer. Those are the components of a computer. Okay, looks up. You need to understand how the computer boots up, and then in what stage should a computer boot up. In the process of like a computer crash, you need to know how to boot up a computer. So in other senses, I would say wish you all the best in your exams, and then I would say prepare well, because multiple choice comes as an easy thing because the answer is just in front of you. But if you haven't studied, then you wouldn't know which one is the right answer. Otherwise, all the best.